Hello, and welcome to Lit by Moonlight, where it's not a phase to let a ghost possess you to help you solve a murder.
I almost said what I always say, which is like, I do it all the time, but I feel like that's getting super old, so I'm just going to say I never have done that in my life, and it's not a phase. And
Yet.
Yeah, it's going to be like a micro trend in the TikTok community.
Just girly things.
Just
ghouly things.
Just ghouly things. Just ghosty things.
Just ghosty things.
Good stuff.
Anyway, what are we talking about?
Today we are talking about Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo.
Well, before we even get into the summary, let's just put out lots of trigger warnings for this book in general. There's a lot of sexual assault in this book, death of a friend in this book, a lot of death in general.
Drug use.
Drug use is big. Grooming. There's just a lot. So before you even listen to this episode, or if you're thinking about reading this book, please do some research and look up any more trigger warnings, but those are like the big ones, and we might talk about that throughout this episode, so please keep that in mind.
So now to give now to give like a brief summary that feels like it doesn't really even like capture the depth of the things that go on in this book because of everything we just said. Yeah. But also we'll get into it anyway. So Alex Galaxy Stern is navigating freshman year at Yale.
One of us. We did not go to Yale.
I applied. They sent me a very kind rejection letter. Alex Galaxy Stern is navigating freshman year at Yale and also fitting into Ninth House among the other magical secret societies at Yale, and also the disappearance of the Virgil to her Dante, her mentor through the chaos, Daniel Arlington, and also a murder near campus that suggests more about Yale's secret world than what meets the surface, and also she can see ghosts. I asked the Tumblr user out there who daftly wrote, "Sorry, I can't come over today. I am contemplating the horrors. Are you Alex Stern?" Can Alex walk the tightrope between her dark past and hopeful future? We're about to find out. Actually, you're about to find out from us because we know already.
We do know already.
Yes. So, I'm Emberlyn, and I'm very pretty.
You are very pretty.
Couldn't think of a good lead-in today, so I just came up with a fact.
I like it. It's a great fact, a fantastic fact, if you will. I'm Caitlin, and I just got one of the best emails of my entire life.
Do elaborate.
Okay, so I went to go check my email for, I don't even remember what now, even though it was literally 5 minutes ago before we started recording, and I had this email, and it just says, like, "Hello, old friend," and it's from some dude named Jordan, and I'm like, who's Jordan?
Yeah.
And I had a friend in college named Jordan, so I was like, is it him? But I'm like, why is he emailing me all of a sudden?
Yeah, it's not the way I would go about. Yeah.
I was really confused. But here's a little backstory about this email. So, as a callback, I watched the show Wrecked, you know?
Oh.
And we watch this a lot, or we talk about this a lot in our podcast. And something that I discovered about the show Wrecked is that if you were watching it on streaming, if you read the episode descriptions, they are the funniest episode descriptions I've ever read in my entire life.
Yeah.
Throughout the first season, it's like they would have like a brief synopsis of the episode, and then the last sentence would be like, "The island makes a discovery that changes everything." And in the next episode, it'd be like, "Florence does this with Emma, blah, 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 blah. The island discovers something that changes everything." And then, like, it just kept, like, repeating it. And it would be like, "And the island, you guessed it, makes a discovery that changes everything." Like, all, like, it just says it. And then finally, and then they did something, and then throughout season 2, they're like, this happens, and this happens. Steve's the captain now. And then, like, every episode is like, Danny's the captain now. This person's the captain now. You're the captain now. No one's the captain. And it's just stupid little details like that. Right. And by season 3, you start reading the episode descriptions, and they're like, they start off like, "Oh yeah, after crashing on the island, blah, blah, blah." Wait, does anybody actually read these descriptions? Or am I just like talking to nobody? And then eventually, like, all of the episode descriptions just start being whoever is typing these up, being like, "Man, I don't know if anyone is reading this," or like, "Yeah, I used the wrong form of your, but who cares? No one's reading these anymore. Like, it doesn't matter. And so by the end of the last season, there is a episode description. I believe it's like episode 9 or whatever the second to last episode is. It's like, if anyone is reading this, please email I read the wrecked episode descriptions at gmail.com and tell me.
No shit.
And so so I wrote to them. I wrote to them twice, okay, because I'm an insane person. Yeah. I wrote to them once saying, like, oh my God, I read blah, blah, blah. I don't remember everything that I said in that email, but I'm going to read you the email that I sent them a second time because I'm like, this is hilarious. And I doubt anyone will ever see this, but it'd be funny if they did. So I wrote to this, I read the wrecked ep descriptions at gmail.com. I said, I'm writing once again that I've read the wrecked episode descriptions. This is so embarrassing. I have no time. I have nothing to do with my life. But this time on Amazon Prime, since the show is no longer available on HBO Max. And honestly, dude, that hurt me. This show is so funny. I was hoping for another rewatch of it, only to find it gone. Now there's a hole in my heart. You could almost say that upon discovering this show was no longer available, I felt wrecked.
Ah, that's a good one. Ooh, you got me at the end.
So I began my search to watch this beloved show on another platform and find that Amazon Prime has it listed, but the episodes are yet to be available to actually watch. And then I put a sad face because I'm sad. And then I said, but wait, what's this? The wrecked episode descriptions, my beloved. I knew you wouldn't let me down. I went through every episode description because this, to me, is peak comedy. And this is true. This is peak fucking comedy to me. I knew these episode descriptions so well. I noticed that the season 2 descriptions were different from the HBO Max season 2 descriptions and are no longer the normal old boring descriptions that I don't read on other shows. I may not have the show back, but damn it, I have the episode descriptions and maybe the words shared between the writer who probably isn't getting paid enough and the viewer who just wants a good laugh is all we need. To the person in charge of writing the wrecked episode descriptions, you're the captain now. Signed, Caitlin. And then this wonderful person emailed me back today and said, you're officially Caitlin Island. Thanks for the kind words. So glad you enjoyed the show.
I have so many questions and I'd love to know more. Like, who is the person behind the wrecked episode descriptions? Like, I want to meet them. I think we should interview them on this podcast.
The person who emailed me is named Jordan Shipley. And Jordan, if you're out there, I owe you my life.
Wait. Okay, that's what I thought. So Jordan Shipley is like, they're like the Shipley brothers, right?
Wait, like, no. Wait,
yeah.
wait.
I was gonna say, Jordan Shipley, isn't that?
Wait, like the people who made the show?
Yeah. I was like, Jordan Shipley, that sounds like
shut the
fuck up. Who
this
wrote
really
the show?
Is the best day of my life.
That's
well,
fantastic.
you heard it here for. I'm gonna. Oh my God, this is hilarious. Well, thank you. You're officially Caitlin Island. Thank you.
That's fantastic. I was gonna say, I was like, so the Shipleys own that email. That's hilarious, and they literally like are also wrote the episode descriptions. Of course they did. They're hilarious. That's great. Props to the Shipley brothers. You're amazing. Wow. Iconic.
I literally just emailing them back. This is the best day of my life. Bless you for this.
I love. I'm so happy that we heard, because you see them at the end of every episode. Like they have that little like whip, like quick whip.
Yeah.
Like and you see them and you're like, oh, the Shipley brothers. They wrote this, and here they are.
Oh,
wow.
They're emailing me.
They do give me like pretty big David Jenkins energy. So I was like, when you said that, I was like, nah.
David Jenkins has also reached out to me before, so
he reached out to you.
He reached out to me. That's how I'm talking. That's how I like to classify my interaction with David Jenkins over Twitter.
He was like he sent like a LinkedIn, like one of those like cold
He's like,
emails.
Hey, Caitlin.
Hey, I heard you were in this industry that I'd like to break into. Yeah, no, I love it. So. To think that's not even what this episode is about.
It's not. This. We're about to talk about like low-key some heavy I say low-key. There some heavy topics, but let me talk to you about this really stupid show that has my fucking heart.
It lightened the mood. Like I feel better going into this.
I was gonna say, like, when in doubt, I always have wrecked, but I can't even watch it right now because they took it off.
They got rid of it. Bring it back. I hope he forwarded the email right to Jeffrey Bezos himself. So, Caitlin, Was there a specific moment in Ninth House that really hooked you, that made you want to keep reading?
Well, hold on, I'm dying. In case you guys were wondering, the outdoors still fucking hate me.
Yeah, she's going through it.
I'm really going through it. I went on a hot girl walk today to see the fall foliage, and I'm paying the price.
And the fall foliage saw her.
The fall foliage did, in fact, look me in the eyes and said, "You're going to pay for this." Was there a specific moment? I didn't have a specific moment that hooked me for Ninth House, but the more that we got to know about the Greys, aka the ghosts that Alex can see, and more about her connection with them, I did want to know more. I love me some ghost stories, and the fact that Alex is just walking about her daily life and seeing dead people just like chilling is so creepy and really cool to me. So I thought that was a really cool aspect. I thought it was cool to have a setting where it's the real world, but also with secret magic societies. And to paraphrase a Tumblr post that I saw, having characters fighting for their lives while also having to make sure their homework gets done on time is hilarious and fun for me. So.
Yeah, I always love like fantasy novels where it's like it takes place in reality and it's like everyone else is just going about their day, like shopping in Macy's, and meanwhile someone's like running by like, we gotta go find the stone of albatross or something. Like on a whole different journey, a whole different life path.
Your roommate's like, oh my god, I can't with this history test we got going on. It's like, yeah, I have to take that test and fight the Dark Lord of Magic tomorrow. Yeah, like my schedule is booked, Kathy. I can't go to the party.
Like I'm just thinking now about like what life would have been like. Like I remember like, so Caitlin and I went to school during the COVID pandemic, and it would just be like, if we had like a friend that was like in a fantasy novel, it would just be us like, oh, like we're not gonna be able to go back to school after this. Like the state said, you know, like school shut down now, and meanwhile our friend was like, you think that's bad?
I got a pandemic and a dragon to fight.
I gotta fight a dragon tomorrow. Life
the dragon
sucks.
doesn't know about COVID.
And I can see fairies. And they're all really mean. And my dad's a fucking wizard, and he's like a jerk about it. I don't know. Like,
so no, Karen, I don't have the study notes for tomorrow.
yeah.
Stop nagging me about it.
I can't get the vaccine because I'm half dwarf.
They haven't made it accessible to half of me yet.
I can only get the Johnson & Johnson, and it gives me rashes.
It is a hard time being a girly who's fighting magic and having to write essays.
Yeah, it is for her. And on top of that, like, she's also not your typical Yale student. Like, she's somebody who comes from a really, like, heavy,
she's not like other girls.
Very difficult life. But yeah, like, also, very seriously, like, you know, she's had, like, a really rough life before this, and she jumps. I don't know. Caitlin's over here, like, we're going there now.
I mean, we might as well.
So, like, you know, it makes it all the more interesting that it's like, life's been pretty shitty so far, and now this, you know. It's kind of like what we went through with Haunting of Hill House, where it was like, what do you want to do? The worst thing or the even worse thing? And no, you can't do the better thing. Yeah.
That's not even an option.
No. Mine was, like, the setting.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of New England horror, and like I belong in New England. Like, I know that's where I'm gonna end up after all this is over. And I'm just like a huge fan. Like, I want more of it. I've been thinking for months now about like writing like some New England Gothic horror just because of like this book.
Do it.
So when I heard Yale was involved, I was sold. I love the aesthetic of like a dark, spooky college town on the coast, and I was really revving up for that. I'm going to be heading up to New Haven for like a little get together in November, and I'm so excited just to be like, this is where all that happened in the book.
Yeah,
so,
that's exciting. Did you have a favorite quote from this book?
Yeah, I had one. And that doesn't sound good. That didn't sound promising, because usually we go through these and we're like, well, there was this one and this one, but no. For me, it was all you children playing with fire, looking surprised when the house burns down. Because, like, that's really what this book is. Like,
yeah.
It's a lot of these super wealthy kids and alumni possessing extreme power and privilege and using magic to, like, preserve their extreme power and privilege. So, and then, like, there's all of these, like, other subplots about, like, shit that normal college kids go through, but with a tinge of magic and privilege. And like, fine, you know, but yeah. I like that. I like that line. It
That was a good
also,
line.
it took me back to like being in school with like a lot of incredibly privileged people. Like, no, this isn't a read. And just kind of feeling like there was just absolutely no, like no implications or like, what's the word, consequences for like some of the things that they were able to do because of just how much money their parents had. So that was relatable. I was like, yeah, brother, you don't have to tell me. Been there.
Been there.
Yeah.
Experienced that.
How about you?
Yeah, I had one that really stood out to me, and that was what magic did. It revealed the heart of who you'd been before life took away your belief in the possible. And I like this because I feel like it really encapsulates both the loss of innocence and then gaining like a little bit of it back when something magical happens. Like, the world is all shit, but then like the creator of one of your favorite shows emails you randomly on a Sunday night, like one
to
of
tell
those.
you you're an island now.
Yeah, to tell me that I am an island now. Title of the episode: Caitlin's an island now. Has nothing to do with the book. No, but like I really liked it because when I read that, I was thinking of like, you know, when you're little and you think that, oh, like Santa Claus is real and like magic could be real and unicorns and all that fun shit, like and then you grow up and I don't think you ever really realize that there's not a moment where I'm like, wow, I don't believe in all of that stuff now. There's only like a moment when you're an adult and go, wow, remember when things were easy and I didn't know a lot and things were better. But I just thought about like that. But then like when you have something that like really brings you joy and kind of makes you think that like anything is possible like in your real life now, because there are those things that we have in the world. And I think it's good to remember the things that we do have in the world that kind of feels like magic to us and to like hold on to it. And if you have someone to like share that with, that you feel comfortable sharing it with, you can share it with them and then like kind of almost live vicariously through them experiencing it too. It's like all brand new.
About to ask a tangentially unimportant question.
100%.
But when did you stop believing in Santa Claus? Like, when did your parents tell you that not to anymore? Or if it was,
My parents never told me not to. It was just like I kind of put it together myself. Like I remember, I think I was in 5th or 6th grade, I think. And because I remember like this one kid like on the bus like being like, he's not real, like blah blah blah, and like telling us all the reasons why. And it's just like, and I remember me and this my friend from elementary school, like we sat together and we're like fighting him. We're like, no, here's the reasons why he is real. And one of our reasons was our parents couldn't afford those gifts without Santa.
Oh no.
So that was just like, yeah, like there's no way we could get that.
That's amazing.
Like, he has to be real. So shout out to my parents for always like making Christmas really great and nice.
Yeah.
But I remember like having those conversations and like just like really thinking about it one day. And I remember I was cleaning my room and I was with my mom. I had to be like 11 probably. And I picked something up and I was like, oh, I forgot I had this. And mom's like, oh yeah, Santa Claus gave that to you, right? And I looked at her and I was like, no, you guys gave that to me. And she's like, no, I'm pretty sure it was Santa Claus who gave it to you. And I was like,
oh no,
yeah, you guys gave it to me. And my mom's like, aw.
Over. The magic's over.
She's
sad.
I got a younger brother. He believed for a little while too, so he was good. But you checked one off the magical box. So I would say like 11. Like I don't think my parents would ever like be like, okay, you're this old. Well, let's cut it out. I mean, like maybe if I got to be like, I don't know, say 24 and being like, Santa, yay!
Hell yeah! Fucking Santa!
He's my best friend.
It's just me, the ghosts, and Santa.
It's just me, the ghosts, and Santa. But yeah, I don't think they would ever be like, okay, guess what? He's not real. Your childhood's over. Like they could never do that. But
my mom was kind of like that.
Really? Did they tell you, or did you find out for yourself?
So my mom, it was Christmas Day.
Oh no.
Yeah, which is like a weird day. I guess when I look back, it's a weird day to do it, but like at the time, it didn't really strike me that way.
Okay.
But it was that day, and I got in a Littlest Pet Shop one of those like Tamagotchis, but they were Littlest Pet Shop.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, they were really cool. Because my parents always went like overboard for Christmas. Which is also what led me to believe there's no way my parents can get all of this.
They don't make enough money for that.
And she goes, Amberlynn, can you come out to the kitchen with me for a second? And I was like,
Not
yeah.
on Christmas.
And I go out there and she goes, I have something to tell you. And I thought my parents were getting divorced. So I was very frightened.
Oh,
and
no.
so you could, which I was, it looks like I was a couple of years early on that one. But you can imagine my joy when it was actually just that Santa wasn't real. And I already kind of knew, I guess, because my mom said to me that I said, I went, I know, Mommy. And then I said, I promise I won't tell Kindle. And that was it. And my mom was so anxious to tell me. Like, she was like, I'm going to ruin her life. I'm going to ruin her dreams. I don't want to do this. Like,
why on Christmas, though?
I think it was just, like, I think it made sense, like, just to do it, like, to kill two birds with one stone so that I could have one more. I don't know. Logically, I guess maybe it doesn't make sense, but also it didn't, like, really ruin anything for me because I was just kind of like,
How old were you?
Oh, I was in 4th grade. So I was a little younger. Yeah, I was a little younger. But also, like, I feel like my parents would also say I was like 40 years older than them at this point. So they were like, you can handle it, you know, like, this is funny because it's such a stark contrast from my dad, who literally got up on the roof on red fluffy pants on my like 4th or 5th Christmas and just like stomped on our sky window and like, shook jingle bells while my mom read The Night Before Christmas in the room below, until he fell off. So, which is very, very like Home Improvement, like
he committed to the bit.
Santa Claus one of him, very Tim Allen.
Well, you see, that's kind of like that's kind of why I believed for so long, because I had so many what I thought were facts that was like, no, like how is this real? So like one of them was at my aunt's house. Her and her neighbor posed like her neighbor got dressed up as Santa, came into the house, and it was like my aunt was like sneakily saw Santa putting gifts like under the trees, and they did that either while the kids were sleeping or while they were at school, and like they're like, look who I saw last night. I was able to get him get pictures of him, and they printed them out and everything. And I was just like, oh my god, like that's proof. That is solid proof.
How
that is Santa.
How else?
How did you get that? And like it was just like little snippets of him, because my aunt's like, you know there's rules or whatever, like, and he told me, be really quiet, but she was really selling it, and I was like, holy shit, he's real. This is awesome.
I have a confession before we move on. I have a bad confession.
Yes.
I think the year before, I think this is what prompted my mom to do this, perhaps, to tell me the truth. But I think the year before that, my third grade, I did something ridiculous. I found all the string in the house. All of it. Some of it mismatched. Some of it was like twisty ties just because I couldn't find enough string. Twine, whatever. Some wiring, probably not very safe. And I baked some of it into a cookie. And I tied a loop around the milk glass, and then I just kind of like fed it upstairs into my childhood bedroom, and then wrapped it, like tied it around my toe. Because I had every intention of catching this man in the act. I
love that.
I was like, my toe's gonna twitch the moment he grabs that milk or that cookie, and it's over for him. It's over. I had a digital camera. I stole my parents' digital camera. Yeah. So my mom was probably a little worried about me. And now I think about it, and she was like, this girl, she's clever, but the energy's being wasted on Santa. So let's see if we can repurpose that for something more productive. So yeah.
I love how elaborate that was. Yeah. That's incredible.
Anyway, this fucking book.
This book.
What song? I'm literally trying to like keep track of where we even are, because it's like,
where are we again? If anyone's still listening, they're like, okay.
It's like we're avoiding talking about it. What song would be playing as you got to go like to the other side to talk to a ghost?
I would play Alternate World by Sound Looks, specifically because all of their music kind of sounds otherworldly to me and fantastic, and also because there's lyrics that say, oh, we're magical, or we'll wake the dead from sleep, oh, we'll shed our skin, we'll walk the other side. And it's like, yeah, that sounds about right. That's kind of what
ghosts do. Cool. Yeah.
ghosts do be doing that. But yeah, also I just like reminded myself I need to listen to more of their music because like
they have good music.
They're pretty good.
Yeah. My logic was like the same as you. It was just like I chose Ghosts That We Knew by Mumford and Sons explicitly because the title has the word ghosts in it. Nice. And some of these ghosts are ghosts that we knew, I guess. I don't know. There's no method to my madness.
There's no logic.
Let's
it's
move
okay. What character do you think needs to be sucked into oblivion in this book?
I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. I on the notes sheet I put all of them because like you ever heard that TikTok song that's like we do not care. No. That's me. Like I just didn't care about like I feel bad saying this because I don't like to be like I don't care, but I just didn't find anything interesting about any of the characters in this book. So like every time
it just wasn't for
I
you.
found something new to say, I like every time like a fact was revealed, I was like, okay. Sure, so like just, either all of them go, all of them stay. We do not care. I expect you to interlay that sound.
I think there's a knock on my door. Hello?
It's Santa.
It's Santa. I swear I heard like a
It's
knock,
fucking
knock, knock.
Santa, I'm telling you.
I said literally every guy in this book besides, and then I said maybe Darlington. Yeah. Because I can't remember if there was anything maybe possibly shady that he did. Yeah. So that's why I'm putting maybe Darlington. But literally every single one of them. If you read the book, you know why. They all suck. Literally, they all suck. Every single guy. Then maybe there was one guy in the beginning. Was it Trip or something? He was described literally as a golden retriever, which I laughed out loud at. But he probably did something too. Because apparently, if you're a guy in college and this book, you fucking suck.
Guy, check. College, check. You suck. Check.
Yeah. You suck.
All men that are not Santa suck. Fun fact. Fun factoid.
You are not welcome on Caitlin Island.
If you are not Santa, a ghost, or Shirley Jackson, you will not be coming to Caitlin Island.
Them's the rules.
Them is the rules. Was there like a character that you'd give like a yummy little marshmallow to as a treat?
Yeah, I would give a little treat to Dawes because the poor girl was just out here trying to do her job and do her damn best, and she just seems so stressed all the time. Also, I'm low-key doing a Dawes cosplay right now. How am I doing that? I have red hair, it's in a bun, and I'm wearing a sweatshirt. And I'm wearing headphones. Yeah. So every time like she was described, I was like, that's just me. Yeah. My outfit. Like,
why am I in this book?
Is this play about also just because, just another redheaded character I can low-key dress up as if I want to.
In the Amazon, is it going to be on Amazon Prime? The show adaptation of this book?
There's
going to be, I think. But just so you know, when it airs, or at least in a couple years, like from now my biopic airs, you will be in the movie dressed as you are, or Dawes will be. But like, imagine that, except like you're being played by Matthew McConaughey and treat like Taika Waititi faction, like. Just everything you're wearing.
I'm being played by Matthew McConaughey.
Like everything you're wearing, he's wearing like a red wig, like put up, but he's Matthew McConaughey. Like,
I'll allow it.
I chose the wrong Matt. I meant the other one. Ignore.
You meant Matthew McFadyen.
I meant to say
right?
Matt Damon. I meant to say Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Wait, Matthew McFadyen? That would be yes.
I would 100% be down.
In my biopic, baby girl, certified baby girl, modern day Princess Diana, Matthew McFadyen plays my best friend Caitlin. Note it down for the history books. This is very important to me.
This is important for me too. I just like to see him portray me. But yeah, she literally was just here doing her best, and she was always there for Alex, and she doesn't ever refuse to help. And she literally is just like, it's my job too. And I'm just like, baby girl, take a nap. Like, she's just like, I just want to do this for research. I thought this was a good research job. I'm way in over my head. So yeah, I said Dawes. I would give her a little treat.
I said the same. I think Dawes is just like, I respect her for like minding her business and just doing what needs to be done. Like, she's like the most unproblematic person in the book, and also somehow like just like the one that didn't make me want to like die the most. So sorry Lee, but yeah, so I can't believe we're already here, but we're gonna be talking about peaks and valleys now.
Peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys.
We should have like a Peaks and Valleys theme song.
We should.
Like you know how in the Cryptid Factor, shout out to the Cryptid Factor, you get me through so much. They'll be like, let's go into Weekly World Weird News, and they play like a little soundbite, and it's just them like doing their best for sound effects, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, we gotta do something like that. I think that's necessary.
Peaks and
valleys. Yeah.
Or we could just keep changing.
I think so too. I think we're still trying to find our brand, or we're just lost souls that are never committing to never finding a brand. So Caitlin, what was your first peak about this book?
My first peak was ghosts.
Good peak.
I love ghosts, and ghosts love me, or at least I assume so, because all of the ghosts I've come into contact with have all been chill, and they gave me chills. So at first, when the book started and it was immediately apparent that magic was going to be involved, I was actually kind of like, man, because for some reason. Now, I didn't know much about this book going into it, except that it was Leigh Bardugo's step into, like, adult fiction or young adult fiction, whatever. And I thought I was told it was a thriller, so that's why I was like, spooktacular, perfect. I can read this book. So I bought it, and I was like, I'll read this at some point, and then now we have a reason to. So when the book started, and it was, like, immediately it was just like, here's magic. I was like, I did not know this was going to be fantasy. Even though I own the book. And on the front of it, there's a Stephen King quote that says something along the lines of one of the best fantasy of our ages or whatever. And I was just like, how did I miss that? I've owned this book since like March, and I never looked at what that said, and it's right at the top of the book. So I had no idea this was going to involve magic. I just thought we were going to get some sort of thriller thing, whatever. So at first I was like, I don't want to learn all of these, like... Because, like, you know, with fantasy, like, you have to learn a world, you have to learn all these new rules, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I wasn't prepared for that mentally, you know? Fantasy is my favorite genre. I love it, but I just wasn't ready for that. But once Alex mentions that she can see ghosts, I was like, oh, game changer. I'll admit it, I still don't know everything about Lethe House or why the heck any of these secret magical societies are there and doing magic secretly. I don't know. All of the information was given, but I was just like, this is not what I care about. Honestly, I do not give a shit about any of it. I don't know if this is because I was going into it thinking this wasn't going to have any sort of fantastical elements. But, like, even as it kept going, I'm like, I don't care. All I care about is Alex, and she can see ghosts, and why can she see ghosts, and what happened to her in the past, and how is she going to solve this murder? Like, that's all I cared about. And then, like, every so often, he'd be like, here's an expert from Skull and Bones, or whatever the heck it was called. And I'm just like, I don't care. Like, this is not what I'm here for. I should probably reread this at some point and pay more attention to that, because I think there is something interesting about it. But I just, like, reading this now, I'm like,
we do not care.
We do not care. So that it was the ghost for me that, like, honestly, like, I thought that element was really cool, because even if this was like low-key like a gothic horror like type setting like that, I still think, like, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, ghosts are real. You could call me a Boogara if you need to. I totally believe in ghosts. But so when that happened, I was like, I believe, like, this is so cool that she can see them. And I just think it's so chilling that Alex can just always see the ghosts in the state of which they died. So not just like apparitions, but like just fully like, that's a human, and this is what they're wearing, and this is what their face looks like if their whole face is there sometimes. So I just thought that was a really cool detail. And I also really liked that she couldn't look them in the eyes or even say their names, because that would, like, attach them to you, which isn't always great. And I personally would find that super difficult to do, just pretending that they're not there. So I thought that was kind of cool to have her navigate. I also love that she eventually did have to talk to a ghost in order to move her investigation along, and gain insight into his death, and learn that not everything she learned about him was true. And how she got to use them to save herself. Just the thought of having these connections with people that no one else can see, I just think is really cool to me.
Yeah. The ghost elements are very interesting. I will say, well, maybe I was laughing just now because when you were talking about the different houses and how it just feels like, at times it feels like there are too many cooks in the kitchen. a little bit with those.
Yeah.
It made me think. So there's this great, I recommend everyone to go home. Maybe not the faint of heart, but most of you to go home after this podcast. Or like get online after this podcast and watch the Too Many Cooks Adult Swim sketch.
Too Many Cooks.
Because it's just like, oh, like they start with like a typical sitcom theme song and like introduction, but then they just keep adding additional people into the family, and then they're like, and then here's this person, and here's the grandma, and here's the other grandma, and here's the other grandma, and here's the cook, and here's the third cook, and they just keep adding people, and that's kind of what it felt like sometimes. Like,
it is so listen, that video is one of the greatest videos I've ever seen. There's a part, I can't say what part it is because I don't want to spoil it. I just need you literally pause this podcast now and look at Too Many Cooks on YouTube. It's so funny. It just keeps going. It's like if when SNL skits keep going, you know how they are and you're too like, okay, and stupid.
Stop. Yeah.
This is like the opposite of that. Like it keeps going, but it keeps getting
better.
And there's so much lore to it, and it's just, it's so good. And there's just one specific part, and I'll tell you right now. It is the part with the eagle. It just keeps going back to that, and it just repeats for so fucking long. And it gets to the point where you're like, how long is this going to go on for? And it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Too many.
Yeah. Whenever, like, that's immediately what I thought about. Like, each time we get to, like, a new chapter, it'd be like, Leafy House, chapter, and I'd be like, who's this now? Like, who are we talking about? Like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
This feels like it's becoming more about my valleys now, so I'll tell you a little bit about my peak if we're ready to hear it.
Do you have
Yeah, I have, I think, again, like, the aesthetics in this book really draw you, and I love New England feelings. Like, I walk through, like, the specific neighborhood where Jeffrey Bezos lives here in DC just to feel the New England feelings, because it's like a really nice old neighborhood. Really nice world building, I'd say. Like, Lee does a great job of distinguishing this world from the Grishaverse. Like, because sometimes, you know, when you kind of step over into a new genre, there's this worry of, like, am I going to be reproducing some of the same, like, content I always have? But she does a good job, I think, of distinguishing between this world where everybody has powers. There's magic, obviously, but it's, like, its own space, and she's done a phenomenal job over the past decade building the Grishaverse. And this does feel, like, different than that. Like, there weren't times when I was like, that's too much like this. Like, there wasn't a feeling of that. And it was good. It was a good feeling. Like, I like that she chose a really unique setting, I feel like, for like, magic and ghosts and, like, these really spooky, like, thriller elements. So, I liked that a lot.
Well, I will say, I think that's half the reason why I wanted to read this book was because I only knew Leigh Bardugo's work as with the Grishaverse, because that's all she's really written, to my knowledge, is just everything to do with that. So I think it's really interesting when an author is able to step out of that and be able to write a whole new original story in that way, where it was like I still had all the elements of her writing that I liked, but it was a new world. And I think she does really good at world building. Yeah. I really liked I liked her how she sets up this world that you're going to be living in for a little bit, and she did really well here. I'm basically just retweeting everything you said, but like putting little tags.
I like that. Now I like that you reblogged, you tagged. I respect it. Did you have, like, a second peek?
Yeah. Leigh Bardugo is very good at introducing a character to you and sprinkling hints at the fact that something not great happened to them in their past, enough to get you to try to figure it out yourself as you read. And then once you're finally given the chapter that tells you what's happened, it feels like you got hit by a train, because it's so much worse than what you could have anticipated.
Exactly.
Yeah, so she did this most notably, no spoilers, but she did this most notably in Six of Crows with Kaz, as well as in King of Scars with some stuff with Zoya's past, and both of those books have to do with all the Grishaverse.
Right.
And she does it again here with Alex, because we're told early on that something horrible happened to her and that she's lucky that she survived, and then we find out that a lot of people died around her or were gruesomely murdered. and including her girlfriend. I don't know if she was her girlfriend or just a friend or more than a friend. I don't know. I read it as girlfriend because gay rights, with her girlfriend Helly. And let me tell you, reading chapter 19 was so heartbreaking. When it's just like, I thought this was going to annoy me because I'm just like, I know what you're doing, Lee. I've read your works before. I know that I'm going to get some sort of like I'm going to find out what happened eventually. Just like, I thought I was going to be like, just tell me. Like, I thought that was going to be like really annoying to me, but I actually kind of liked it because I'm like, it was kind of what was keeping me reading for a while. I'm like, I need to find out what happened to Alex at Ground Zero is what she kept calling it. So in chapter 19 is when you kind of find out, not kind of, you do find out what happened to her and her friend Helly. And basically what happened is that Helly died. And Alex wakes up and she's talking to Helly, and Helly's looking at her, and she even smiles a little bit at her. And so Alex keeps talking to her, and she's like, oh, we got to get you changed because you have like, there's like vomit on her shirt or whatever. And Alex goes to reach for Helly's shirt to take it off, and her hand goes through Helly. And when that happened, I gasped and immediately started crying because it was just so heartbreaking that Helly knew she was gone, but she still laid with Alex until Alex realized what was happening. And like that hurts because, I mean, first of all, everything with how she died was horrible. And every time in media when character A is oblivious to something devastating that character B knows about, and once they tell them, everything changes, that hurts. It's like, it kind of reminds me in the first episode of The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. At the end of episode 1, Steven gets to his apartment and he sees Nellie. Helly. And he starts talking to Nellie, and so casually, and then he keeps talking to her. He gets a phone call, and on the phone is his dad telling him that Nellie's dead, and what he's actually been talking to is her ghost. And it's so much, and it hurts every time, and this was no different.
Ow. Why'd you remind me of that? Okay.
Because it was, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts.
Yeah, I remember being really sad during that scene too when I read it, and I think that's why, because it reminds me so much of like Mike Flanagan being a dick to us and making us cry. Or whomever wrote that scene, shame on you. I think for me, I was like really surprisingly into the setup for like the mystery. Like I was hyper fascinated throughout the first like 3/4 of the book, regarding like who killed the girl who passed away, who was like the town girl, and concerning like the ghost and Daisy. Was her name Daisy, or am I thinking that's
yes?
Okay, so that does I was like, did I take that from The Great Gatsby? Cool. So like I was like really into that. Like I was like reading on like page turning a little bit just to kind of get there. And I really feel like there was a lot of like cool subplots in this book that I wanted to like find out more about. And there were also like a lot of subplots. Period.
There were.
Like, it's gonna sound like insane for me. I feel like this is a big ask, but I feel like if this book was scaled back by like 200 pages and like some of these subplots were given a little more attention to detail, I feel like it would probably have been like the perfect book. Like I would have been like, this is a great, I would probably be like singing so many praises about this book because like I do really feel like in between the murder mystery and then like the aspect that's like, what does Helly have to do with anything? And then like,
right,
you know, like that's where I want it to be. This is the place that it's like the place that I was when I read Six of Crows is where I wanted to be with this book in terms of the mystery, like kind of uncovering the trauma that Kaz faced in that book. And I didn't like really get there, but I was there for a little bit there, and I really need to praise Lee for like being able to like suck you into story and be like, what the hell is going on here? I gotta read on to find out, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that kind of it ties into my valley about this book actually, because I found the ending to just be a bit underwhelming for me, because there was like a good chunk in the middle where I was like, oh my god, I'm finally getting these answers, and like she just does a really good job of like just setting up all these things, and then you get like a good, like I don't want to say that Helly's death was a great payoff, but like it was interesting to read about, and you get that answer, and just finally finding out, and it's even though it was devastating, it was just like, oh, it like hits you in the gut. And but there really was just a lot going on, and it got to the point where, like, I don't know, I almost started to lose interest towards the end. And I didn't find it too surprising that in the end it was the dean who tried to kill Tara. I guessed that about halfway through.
I literally just remembered that, so that's where we are.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck who did this? Yeah.
Who did this? I don't know. I guessed that about halfway through. That someone was probably controlling Blake. I think he was like a boyfriend. I don't know. One of the guys I want to die in this book.
8 white guys in this book, and all of them seem kind of shitty. Hard to tell them apart.
Yeah, they all are. So I kind of figured that someone was controlling him because that had been a thing already. And then so much time and focus seemed to go into Miss Belgum, I think was her name. Whoever her French
lady who
was.
wasn't actually a French lady or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so she ended up being actually a ghost that was possessing another woman and did something with all these other murders that I honestly was kind of just skimming through, because I'm like, I don't care about the ghost murder, even though like earlier I was just like, oh, interesting. Yeah. The ghost that's helping, it's like called North, I believe. Yeah. Like North is helping Alex. Except he didn't really help her at all, actually. So like they made a whole deal.
Oh, that's true.
Wait a minute. So they made Alex made this. She literally dies so that she can talk to this guy, and she's like, I need you to help me solve this murder with Tara. And he's like, yeah, cool, I'll do that if you solve my murder, because I didn't actually kill my wife, and that's all bullshit. And she's like, okay. And I don't think in the end, unless I just forgot, he didn't do shit to help her.
No. He's supposed to find somebody.
Yeah, I think the only thing that he did was she like got him to help her out of something. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, but it was like not the original point though, or something.
No.
Yeah. Hi.
Okay, well that sucks. Yeah, so then what the fuck was the point of that? I don't know. So I didn't care about him at all, really, because like that's the thing, is that because I didn't care about the lore of Lethe House or whatever the hell they want to call their secret societies, like I didn't care at all, and like his death had something to do with all that. I'm just like, I don't care, and I knocked it off the table like I was a cat knocking a glass off. And I was just like, okay. So the ending spent way too much time for that for me anyway. And I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah. And then they're like, oh yeah. And then we should probably find a way to save Darlington because, also he's a demon apparently? I don't fucking know.
He's a wait. Okay. Yeah, this is all, I read this book like 2 months ago, so this is all coming back to me now.
Yeah, and I finished it yesterday, so you can see Emerald and I are on 2 different wavelengths as far as how ahead we are.
And she's like, and hers is, huh? And mine's, what?
yeah. So, yeah, I shit you not, Emerald. Do you remember him? He's being called the Gentleman Demon.
Yeah, I do now.
What
mommy.
In the Steed bonnet are we talking about? So that's the thing, and I think that there is going to be a second book to this. It's coming out in January. It's called Hellbent. I will be reading it because I'd like to find out more, and I feel like I'd like to see where this goes, and also I just feel like maybe this deserves a little bit more attention to me, from me rather. I find Alex an interesting character, and I do want to know more about Dawes, and I'm hoping that maybe in the sequel we get some of her point of view, because that was another thing, is that in this book there was that I liked, was that there was multiple POVs, but it was Alex and then Darlington, but Darlington from like the previous semester. So while you're also there's so many too many cooks.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks.
Because okay, throughout the book, you're like, all right, what happened to Alex, and how does she see the ghosts? Also, apparently, she can use ghosts. How does that? So then you have to figure out
God, yeah.
what horrible thing happened to her in the past, which was absolutely horrible. In chapter 7.
Yeah.
Chapter 7, if you're going to read this book and you're still listening to this podcast, huge trigger warning for that. So horrible things happened to her in chapter 7. So you get that backstory. But then there's more to it. And it's like you have to find out that she also can control ghosts, or they can control her. And also there's still something that happened to her and her friend Helly that came out of nowhere that you need to find out, that you are invested in, but you still don't know anything about that. And then meanwhile, last semester there's Darlington, who, by the way, isn't here during the spring semester. So where is he? What happened to him? And what's their relationship like? And what's all like, there's too many
cooks. Yeah.
And on top of that, there's like magic that they have to keep secret.
And there's a murder, and there's a cop there.
What's a murder? What was your valley?
So yeah, I'm gonna take like a nosedive with mine, because I feel like we're like, you know. So you mentioned earlier that like you didn't know this was like a fantasy book, and
yeah, because I don't know how to read.
So that yes, and I'd say yes, and you don't know how to read, but also no, just kidding. I'd say also like it's kind of unclear, because like it's like a fantasy, but then it's also a thriller, but also it's a horror book. Like it feels like there's been all of these different characterizations for it that I keep hearing, like when I read about the book and like when I read like.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe it is like gothic horror.
Yeah, even then I'm like. Because, like, there's just too much, like, there's a lot of fantasy elements, and, like, again, there's just too many cooks. Like, it's just there's a lot going on.
That's the title of the episode.
Why I'm a little hesitant to say horror, though, is because I didn't, like, first of all, and maybe this isn't the best, obviously, like, this probably isn't the best tell, but it wasn't scary. Fuck off out there. Somebody's, like, honking their little hornoonies.
They said there's too many.
There's too many. So the reason I'm hesitant to say it's horror, though, is because I personally didn't think so. No, but also because like it didn't really feel scary so much as like I found a lot of the horror elements to be more like gratuitous than scary. Like, and when I say that, I mean like there was a lot of really graphic stuff that happened in this book, and it made me kind of uncomfortable. Like, I will say that. Like, that's part of my critique. It's probably like a me problem. I was uncomfortable. But it was graphic to me in ways that I felt were almost not necessary. Like, I think there's a way to do adult fantasy fiction, and I don't know if this is really like it. And I'll give an example. A lot of the explicit sexual assault in this book felt just really heavy to read. And I'm not going to, if this was like empowering for you to read about in terms of like a survival story, I'm not going to criticize you for that, because I feel like that's completely valid experience. But, and like, you know, like there are no universal experiences of assault. And I know a lot of this comes from Lee's personal life. So I don't want to aim any criticism at those things. However, I feel like context really matters, and when you represent subject matter like this in novels, like that context has to be there, and it didn't really feel like it was. Like, there's these really graphic depictions of SA that didn't feel super contextually relevant, and this, not in the sense that they weren't like furthering the plot along, because I don't know if we want SA to be a plot device per se either, but like, for example, using Alex's roommate, like her very graphic date rape that was videoed.
Yeah.
Like, I was in the shower listening to this on audiobook, and I like had to like scrub harder, frankly, because I was like, this is just too much for me. Like, I think my big issue with that is that her rape is kind of, it seems like it's kind of like used to progress the plot of Alex, because it's Alex that moves forward and kind of like quote unquote acts as a savior in this specific like plot line, and like goes and makes this man who date raped her essentially eat poop, like for real, which also happened. And it wasn't like about the victim, right? It didn't feel like it was centered on the victim. It felt like it was centered on furthering Alex's story progression, and it wasn't like super satisfying for me. It just made me feel like icky afterward, in like as like a survivor, this isn't how I want to hear this right now in my life type of way. Like, obviously this wasn't crafted for me as a survivor, like, you know, like I'm a grown-up, but I just kind of felt like, this is a fine line I don't want to walk on, you know?
Yeah, for me, that scene, like part of me was just like, oh, these guys are getting what they pay, like, you know, you're getting back at them. But also, as a whole, it didn't seem necessary.
Yeah.
I just don't think, like,
too many cooks.
I didn't. Too many cooks. I just like for me, just having to read that and like, yeah, it's horrible, and like these things happen to people, and it's terrible to read about, and sometimes just like, all right, I'm reading about this, and it's making me more aware of just some of the things that happen that should not happen. But I don't know, it just didn't feel necessary to the plot for me. And it was like a big moment for Alex to be like, haha, fuck you, and I got back at this person for my friend, which is great, and they had it coming. But did we have to read that?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have to read it. I didn't have to read this book.
Right.
So.
Right.
But I didn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think there needs to be like, I feel like I know that like Lee has like pushed back a little bit on some of the commentary about like trigger warnings in this book, and I feel like that's like very valid because these are really personal experiences for her, and I think it's really hard to like, I think like when you like translate those to like fantasy, it's like really difficult. I think it's even harder to hear criticism because it's like, this is your life kind of poured out into pages a little bit, but like, like I think there is room for some nuanced discussion about the fact that like maybe we got to be like a little bit more sensitive about the way that we like the way that we portray essay in books, and like what's essential and what isn't, and like when rape is being used as a plot device to further the best interests of the main character, like, is it really necessary? Like, I don't know, because like I'm not disagreeing with the subject matter. Like, there are great books that like handle essay in a really like intentional way, but this just didn't feel like one of those moments. So I do think there's like room for growth there. Another thing for me, I have whatever grievances that BuzzFeed has about Ned Falmer, I have those same grievances. Like to that extent about this book. There's a lot of swearing, like a lot, like it was kind of edgy, but like too edgy for me. Like it sounded like me a little bit, like too much. Like when when you're in middle school and you just like, I just learned how to say the fuck word, so I'm gonna say the fuck word all the time. You know, it felt a little bit like that. And there were times when I was just like, okay, like simmer, like simmer down. You know, lay your hand on the Bible.
Death fucks us all.
Yeah, like that wasn't, because that's like the quote you hear a lot, and that wasn't really a book that like sealed it for me, because that wasn't the quote that sealed it for me, because I was like, death, it fucks me, my cat.
It felt like one of those lines. It's just like, I'm trying to be edgy.
Yeah, I was like, my cat Manny, my death fucks my cat Manny and me and my boyfriend Vishwas. Okay, all right. And finally, I feel unconventionally angry that the setup for this book is all of these magical elite houses possess infinite power that they use to remain in power, but the plot point for this book is not, let's dethrone this whole thing. Like, it seems like she kept setting herself up to make this deep point about privilege and power and feminism, and like just like these really empowering points about those things, but then like that didn't like really come to fruition. So I was kind of looking for more of that fire, because I know this woman has that fire burning inside her soul. I know.
Oh,
and I just needed to see that more, I think, in relation to those conversations about privilege, because it felt like we were like sprinkling a little bit on there, but then it didn't really come through the way that I was expecting it to, and that I thought it really could have, to like tie things together a little more if you're gonna do this at an elite school like Yale, you know. So
right. And I wonder if the second book is going to get into that more, but still, if you're going to set some of those stuff up in the first book, I feel like there has to be some sort of closure for at least some of it still.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Like, yeah. So, Caitlin, on a scale of 1 to darkness,
your computer's like, and you're done.
Great points. Go to bed.
Go to bed.
Santa's coming.
Yay!
So, Caitlin, on a scale of 1 to 5 coins that persuade you to do stuff, what do you rate this?
I gave this book a solid 3 out of 5. I do think it is an interesting story, but the ending to me was kind of meh. And I was more interested in the characters and the background of all of these magical houses and shit that I tended to zone out during these parts, and I don't like it when I'm reading a book and I'm just like, next.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be engaged, and I love her writing, honestly. I really do. I think maybe at some point I might reread this when I'm not on a time crunch. So... and I'm wondering if maybe that'll change things. And I do intend on reading the next book to see how that supports this book.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 3 out of 5. It had a lot of interesting elements, but there's just things that I didn't care about. So, and that's a me thing.
I just didn't care enough. It's a good reason. I feel like to give
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't like this book. I feel like at the end of the day, I think I had to like take a step back, because I was like, oh, it's cute, it's fun. But I think at the end of the day, there's just too much, I think, that kind of like falls under, like, it just isn't working for me. Like, it was very mundane, I think, in a lot of ways. It was either very mundane or very gratuitous in its use of like really disturbing and traumatic plot points. And it felt, for me, like a gigantic departure in terms of quality from Lee's other work. Like, Six of Crows is incredible. The Crow's Duology is just an incredible series. I think it might even prove to be a better personification of her ability to write for adult readers than this book is. Like, she didn't need all of the bells and whistles that this book has, I think, to write a good adult novel. Like, I feel like the duology just does that by itself. So I like the ideas very much, but not so much the execution. I gave this a 2 out of 5. And that said, I love this author, and I do think the transition from YA fantasy to adult fantasy is like not as smooth as, you know, you or I might think. So I give her props for this, and I hope that like over time we get to see like great adult fantasy books from her. So yeah. Thank you for listening to Lit by Moonlight. Tune in next time when we end up in the middle of the damn woods for Near the Bone.
Ooh. Yeah. Near the bone. Too many
cooks.
Too many cooks.